You're listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Let's go out and leave it all on the field. It's going to start with us. We got to make plays in order for us to win. All you got to do is do your assignment, nothing more. Let's go. Playmakers on three. 1, 2, 3, playmakers.
Matthew leans in, he's got it, wants to throw. Pressure comes set at the screen, got it to Riddick. Riddick to 15, Riddick 10, Riddick 5, Riddick end zone! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! He actually fakes, he's going to throw. Loads, does, it is picked off by the Lions! Coming back the other way off the deflection. Glover Quinn, back to the house! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Oh, baby, a big takeaway for 6. 38 seconds left. Bradford's got it on third down, sets it, throws, it is intercepted, Darius Slay's got it at the 30, Slay inside the 25, back it up, looking for somewhere to go, Stafford's gonna tuck it and run, Stafford at the 5, 3, 2, 1, end zone, touchdown Detroit Lions, oh, Matthew took it home.
You're listening to Lions SRD on sportsradiodetroit.com with Ben Zalagi and Jaime McTaggart.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lions SRD here on sportsradiodetroit.com. Nope, do not turn off your podcast. Do not switch podcasts. You're right, it's Lions SRD. It's back. Training camp is underway. That means we're underway. We have to do a little housekeeping before we dive into some topics today. Well, as you know, we didn't do a draft show, which was kind of odd because the draft is important while we were going through kind of a transition in between and in the interim. And as you may know, the past couple of years, Marty Stouffer has been the one, basically the second mic of Lions SRD. And before that, it was Kevin Liddy. But now we have someone else. And it's not a he. You've heard her voice before if you listen to the SRD Roadshow on Saturdays here on sportsradiodetroit.com. Her name is Jaime McTaggart. Jaime, welcome to your first show of Lions SRD.
Thanks, Ben. I'm really excited to be here.
No problem. See, now, people, just to let you in behind the curtain a little bit, Jaime was going to be actually the new host. I was going to kind of step away from Lions, but she had a great idea to have both of us do it. And I agreed because I like working with Jaime. Jaime's a fun person. She knows her stuff, and you can actually read some of her stuff at DetroitSportsAndEntertainment.com. That's a partnership we've had now for, I want to say, at least 6 months now. If not, it definitely seems like 6 months. But
at least, yeah.
What? Just so people can kind of get to know who you are, what kind of got you interested in the Lions in the first place? Was there a special, like, for me growing up, it was the only thing on TV on Sundays. I didn't have a chance. I was gonna say I didn't have a chance, as people say. But how did you, Jaime, get into the whole sickening disease that is known as Lion fandom, or just watching the Lions in general?
Well, like you, football was always on in my house Sunday. Not just the Lions, but basically any football game ever. And actually, it wasn't just my dad that was a fan. My mom was a huge football fan too. Her favorite team was the Bears. So they hold a special place in my heart, even though I know that's really sacrilegious to a lot of Lions fans. And my sisters all were cheerleaders, so I went and watched a lot of high school football even. So now I will literally watch anybody play football anytime, anywhere. You got a game in the backyard? I'll come watch. I'll cheer for somebody. I just love football. And the Lions in particular, obviously that was a team that I had the most interaction with, but got to see the most, and how can you not love Barry? Like, I was growing up and Barry was running all over the field. How can you not love Barry? So,
well, it's funny that you say that because I don't like Barry. Like, I like him as a player, and before you die of a heart attack, I actually have an explanation for it. It's
okay.
I know, as you say, skeptical voicing and whatnot. I didn't like the way he retired. I think the way he retired was classless, and a lot of people. I know, like, the general sentiment is, well, can you blame him? And no, I don't blame him for retiring. I blame him on the way how he retired. I think, like I said, I think it was classless. I think it was tasteless. And the story, if people don't know, he was literally on his way to camp. And there was a fork in the road to go on the expressway or to go on the off-ramp to the airport. And he went on the off-ramp to the airport, called his agent and said, yeah, I'm done. And his agent, that's when he sent the fax over. And Barry went on a flight out of the country. He went to London, I believe. And to me, that's why, like, watching the highlights of Barry Sanders, I still get reminiscent of it, you know, watching it as a kid, growing up, making 7 guys miss. And I wish that was an exaggeration, but it's really not. 7 guys miss and then scamper for 20 yards and before he gets tackled. Or even sometimes, you know, scoring on the play. But just the way it ended, that's why I have an issue with Barry Sanders. But it's okay.
Do you have a similar issue with Calvin Johnson then?
A little bit. I mean, at least Calvin Johnson didn't like quit on his team. He walked away from the game. Like Calvin was injured for the last 3 years in a Lions uniform, and he could barely like move. I mean, he was playing with one hand at some times in the season. His ankle was never fully healthy. I mean, every single week, you know, he was on the IR, not the IR, but the injury report list, and then he would play on Sundays. But like I see it differently. Like Barry Sanders ran away from the Lions. I think Calvin Johnson walked away from the Lions. Now, I don't like how the Lions, you know, kind of treated the handling of his contract, and they kind of told him point blank, like, hey, this is why we're getting rid of you. So, like, it does leave a bitter taste in my mouth a little bit too with Calvin Johnson, but I understand it more because I think, you know, just it seems like a more mutual of parting ways instead of Calvin just fleeing to an airport. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I gotcha. Makes sense. No, I didn't remember the Barry Sanders.
Yeah.
The story about him leaving. I don't think I was that deep into the Lions at that point, other than just watching them and loving them. So
yeah.
I don't think I paid attention to a lot of the off-season news or things of that nature.
It's okay. I mean, this is why we thought you would be, you know, an excellent addition to not only the SRD family with the Road Show, but also with the Lions, because I don't like it when people agree with me. I really don't. I enjoy healthy discussion and this is not a debate show either. It's not like, you know, Jamie's going to yell at me, I'm going to yell at Jamie or anything like that. It's, you know, your voice and opinions are going to be heard. It's just how we do it. Because
right.
As a journalist, I am taught to be skeptical. That's what I went to school for. You basically learn to drop all of your biases. But having said that, obviously there's a lot of ground to kind of cover, but we'll do it in a Cliff Notes version. Lions obviously get rid of Jim Caldwell. They basically fire everyone that's not named Jim Bob Cooter. Then they replace them with basically everyone that ever coached at the University of Syracuse. Keep Jim Bob Cooter. Got rid of Ron Prince, who was coaching the offensive line, which I think is the best move ever. And, of course, bring in Matt Patricia. So what were your thoughts just in the offseason as all this shifting was happening, Jamie? What were your thoughts on what happened? And were you willing to give Caldwell another year, or what do you think it was the right time to make a change?
It was time to make a change. I had been very vocal in the fact that I did not want to keep Caldwell around. I don't think that he ever had it in him to fire up the team when they were not playing with heart and passion, when they were having those games where they kind of gave up. He just was too even keel. I think he didn't do a good job of calming them down when they were overexcited, and I don't think he could hype them up when they were underwhelmed. And like I said, he had his opportunities. He had his chance. He moved us. He moved far. We're better than we were under Jim Schwartz, but we're not where we want to be and where the fans actually deserve for the Lions to be at this point. If you're still a Lions fan after everything that we've been through, then you deserve some sort of win.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. And you're right. Jim Caldwell did move the goalpost, so to speak, on a little bit of expectations. And I mean, one in particular, the past couple of years, people have predicted the Lions to finish the season with only 5 or 6 wins, and they somehow get to 9. So,
yeah. And
also beating Green Bay at Green Bay a couple of times, whether Aaron Rodgers was on the field or not, he still was able to do that. And you know, there were still some successes there, but it left you wanting more, and that's why you moved the goalposts. Now, I know a lot of people after the Super Bowl were kind of like, really? Lions are going to go after Matt Patricia, and Patricia didn't really have necessarily the best showing as a defensive coordinator in the Super Bowl. But I don't know. For me, I'm excited in the fact that Bob Quinn, when he first took over the job as general manager, had always wanted to start building his own team. You could tell it in the way he talked about pressers, the way anytime he was talking about what he looked for in a player, what he looked for in a team, he was just ready, and he really wanted to build that team. And the fact that he was the team's second option, I've said this for years, and it's still a very good option because originally Martha wanted Eli Wolf, and the Packers said no. And then they're like, okay, well, I guess we'll get Bob Quinn out of New England, which is a great plan B. And I think what he's done so far is astounding. And it goes, we're going to kind of flash forward a little bit to when Patricia obviously gets hired. And in that press conference, Bob Quinn said that there was days back in 2000, 2001, where me and Matt were scouting players in the player development department in New England, in Foxborough, and we just sat back and we're like, man, can't you just wait until we're building our own team? And they finally get the opportunity to. And for me, I think that's kind of cool. So it's something that obviously you can get excited with Matt Patricia. I think he gets the most out of a little, because if you look at what New England had, they never really had star players. I mean, they had a couple star cornerbacks. They had Darrelle Revis for a year. Malcolm Butler, obviously, coming out of nowhere, making the interception against the Seahawks a couple of years ago, and obviously not playing last year, which could have hurt the Patriots getting another Super Bowl ring, their sixth. But guys in the middle, guys like we know here in Detroit, Kyle Van Noy, a guy who disappeared on the depth chart. All of a sudden he goes into New England, and he's actually not bad. He's more than serviceable. He's actually a decent linebacker. So, it's stuff like that that gets me at least kind of encouraged. Granted, I know the city of Detroit, when I say the city of Detroit, mainly the media, and Matt Patricia got off on the wrong foot. Do you think that is going to hinder anything when it comes to, press conferences or anything like that? Or do you think it's just going to be, once the season gets going, he's just going to kind of just be business as usual? Because after that initial story of what happened back on spring break, he was just very, very guarded, rightfully so, and reserved with stuff, and he wanted to just basically say his statement in the press conference, not answer any questions, and get out. Do you think he's going to warm up to the media, or do you think we're going to get kind of like a Bill Belichickian, we're on to Cincinnati type of mentality when we get to press conferences?
I think you're going to see quite the Bill Belichickian nature, namely because Detroit media is not very forgiving of the Lions in general. They do tend to like to point out all the negative and rip apart every decision that any Detroit sports coach makes. So I think that the fact that they didn't get off on the right foot, the fact that he was under Belichick and has that sort of guarded nature in general when it comes to the press, and then on top of it all, the Detroit press nature towards the Detroit coaches, he's going to be a little more guarded. We're not going to get as much out of him. I don't think he'll be as close-lipped as Caldwell, scripted, if you will. Caldwell always felt like he was reading a script.
Yeah.
But I don't think you're going to get full open. I don't think you're going to get a Ron Gardenhire feel out of Matt Patricia ever.
What do you mean by that? Like a Gardenhire feel, just being open and honest, or what?
Completely open and honest. He doesn't hold back anything. He says it exactly how it comes to his mind. He seems to have no filters, whether that's put on for the show or just how he generally is. You get the sense that there is no filter between his brain and his mouth when he talks to the media. Yeah, no,
I think that's fair. I just wanted to get that clarification from you.
Yeah,
but,
not a problem.
But obviously Detroit's in training camp now. Everyone's reporting, and there's only a couple of players not playing. Obviously Ziggy Ansah, who wasn't really healthy last year, and this year starting camp on PUP. And Kennard also on the non-football injury list. He's out. But for the most part, everyone's in. And on Sunday, the Lions were able to actually put on the pads for the first time. And one thing I know that you wanted to talk about in particular, and I think it's interesting, they were working on goal line situations. And we know, obviously, not just in the red zone, but overall, when it comes to short yardage situations, the Lions lost a lot. They couldn't really move the ball, the line of scrimmage forward. It was some insane stat of, 1 in like 40 conversions on like 3rd and 1 would be for a first down. And I wish that was an exaggeration, but it's really not.
No, it's not. Unfortunate.
But
we couldn't do anything under 3 yards, really.
That is true. But yeah, I know you wanted to talk about the team. I think it was on day 2, working on goal line situations. Why did you want to bring that up? And I'll let you kind of run with it for a little bit.
Well, I think because it is such a big deal to what we saw last year. We had so many opportunities where we would just march the ball down the field in no time at all. We'd get right down there. We'd get within scoring distance. We'd have everything right in our hands. And then we'd have to turn it over to Matt Prater and his foot, which is fantastic. He's a great kicker. He's been really reliable for us. I love what he's done in Detroit, especially following up Jason Hanson, which is so hard to do because Jason Hanson's the Lions' lead scorer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having seen that all season long, I think that was a frustration for anybody who watched any Lions game and wanted the Lions to do anything at all. When you see that they can make that play and they can make the long yardage and they can get down the field very quickly, but then they just stall out when it becomes necessary for them to make the big play. I'm glad to see that is his first focus of training camp. Like, this is where you guys struggled last year. This is what you need to be good at. And he says it's not only because it's where they struggled, but that's always been what his focus has been, is the goal line plays, those big plays for both defense and offense. So it's nice to see that he is taking care of our pressing needs, as well as his overall scheme fits into what we really needed the help with a lot.
Yeah, and I think one thing too, the focusing on goal line plays, not only obviously it will help, dividing schemes to obviously score instead of settling for a field goal. However, one thing that is really interesting, and we know obviously a goal line situation is 10 yards and in. And it's a phrase I like to say, rubber's going to hit the road. And you need to move the line. You need to move the line forward. And Bob Quinn has said specifically he wants this run game fixed. And, Jim Bob Cooter doesn't really like running the football. He's more of a dink and dunk, short passes equal runs. But it really seems like the Lions as an organization are committed to this newfound toughness, this newfound mentality of, no, we're going to run the football, even if it's like banging our heads against the wall. And what way to better do that than to build that toughness than to work on goal line situations? Because if you're working from a 10 yards and in, not only are you getting first downs, but it sets you up for that mentality that, over and over again, when it's, 3rd and goal on the 2, you can punch it in. Third and goal on the 4, you're not relying on a fade route. You can actually maybe go off tackle on a run or what have you. And again, it develops that toughness. So I liked it too. That's why I really kind of appreciated it, because it's something that I don't think the Lions necessarily lack physical toughness. I think they lack the mental toughness. And I think that's where Patricia's going to help, because there was stories either from Dave Burkett, Justin Rogers, Kyle Meineke, what have you, of Patricia bringing in the do your job mentality from New England. And New England, we know stories from all the exposés from, their Super Bowl runs, where these guys were running when they didn't want to run. These guys were hitting when they didn't want to hit. And, it sucked, but obviously it, paid off in spades when it came down to games, because the Patriots would either just find a way to beat you, or they would just stomp on your throat. Like, it's just, right. That's just what the Patriots did. So that's why, like, I saw that report too, and I did. I got, kind of excited because I like the unknown. Like, and that's what Detroit is right now, especially with Patricia. It's a great unknown. And on Sunday, when they put on pads, there was a couple of training camp observations with just the drills alone. Kyle Meineke, say that 5 times fast, reported that there was a 3-man run blocking drill. There was receivers working on downfield blocking against defensive backs. There was other drills like the Oklahoma drill, which was never run by Jim Caldwell or anything like that. And it's just, you see all this, and it's like, I want to see the preseason games. I cannot wait until, basically a week and a half until we start seeing, granted it's going to be a vanilla version of it, but we're still going to kind of see what this team looks like, get an idea of the depth that's going to be built, because obviously you got to start from 90 to go to 75, then, go to 52. But it's just going to be really, really interesting to see how this kind of plays out, right?
Yeah, and also along that note, Albert Breer was commenting about how big and tough that O-line is this year, and that's going to be a big change for the Lions too. As long as they can stay healthy, he feels like they are going to be one of the best O-lines in the game.
Yeah, and that's
we have struggled with that for the last ever. The last time we had a good O-line, seriously.
Oh, God, I honestly can't remember it. I would honestly say it's been at least 20 years just to be on the safe side, the conservative side. But, I mean, that was the thing last year. Last year, the line wasn't healthy, and, TJ Lang didn't really play. Right tackles, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he wasn't really healthy. And obviously the Lions had left tackle situations because Decker wasn't healthy either. So that's the thing. If this team gets healthy, it's going to be exciting. And obviously with the draft with Ragnow still working at left guard and center, they're still trusting Glasgow at center just because he's had the reps already in the NFL. He's used to the game already, still as the center. It's going to be encouraging to see what these guys can do. And hopefully there's depth now on the offensive line to where they can not only protect Stafford, because if Stafford's not under pressure, the guy is, I think, and people are going to be like, wow, you're nuts. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in the league when he's not under pressure. Even if when he is under pressure, he's still easily top 8.
Right.
And
I think that points to your point of top 5, because he has not hardly ever not been under pressure. He has one of the shortest windows to make a decision in the league, and he still does so well. So I think that when you give him some time and some ability to go through his plays, you'll see a marked improvement in his overall performance, which is saying a lot.
Yeah. And one thing that will help him too is if the Lions develop a run game, which is going to be something that would be nice to see. But one other quick thing back on the camp observations, even tight ends were required one-on-one run blocking against defensive ends. So, I mean, you could really tell they're putting an emphasis on it. But one running back that we all know is put underneath the microscope, so to speak, is Ameer Abdullah. Why? Because it's his final year in a Lions uniform unless they extend him. And I know a lot of people are ready just basically to cut ties with the guy, and rightfully so. I mean, it's something that, he hasn't been the best running back, but I think, and this is maybe just me kind of being crazy, I think it's wrong if people root for Abdullah. Like, I want to root for Ameer Abdullah, not only one, because it fixes an issue, but two, if you trade him before the trade deadline, you're actually going to get something back for him. So that's why, I kind of want to pose the question, is it wrong to root for Ameer Abdullah? Because we already know the running back room's crowded, even though Blunt, who was brought in the offseason on Sunday, walked out of training camp. But Marvin Jones did the same thing on Saturday and was back on the field on Sunday. So it could be minor. We don't know. As Jim Caldwell says, we're going to have to check the report.
That doesn't exist yet.
Right. If one exists. But it's something I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people do think it's wrong to root for Ameer Abdullah. Do you think that's an accurate portrayal, Jamie, or do you think I'm not being fair to people here?
No, Abdullah gets a lot of hate from every Lions fan I've ever heard. Made fun of for not catching the ball, not holding on to the ball, fumbling, everything under the sun. I mean, he got hate when his child was born, for crying out loud. because he can't hold a pass.
Yeah.
But here's why I want to root for him more than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
If he has a fantastic year and we trade him before the deadline, we're going to get something good. Not just something, but we'll get something good. I want him to be successful. And I'm hoping that under a new leadership, maybe that we'll see parts of him we haven't seen before. We'll see the strengths that we've been looking for, and then we can get an amazing return for him.
That's the goal, right? I mean, it is something that Ameer Abdullah under a Lions uniform hasn't rushed for over 600 yards at all. I mean, the most he's ran for is 597. He was 3 yards short, but he had a great average to kind of go with it, with the 4.2. But also, he's had issues staying healthy, and it's something that, again, like, I know people are probably done with Ameer Abdullah. They've mentally checked out with him, and that's fine. That's fair. He does fumble sometimes that are ill-advised. He does drop passes sometimes, which is ill-advised. As in his short career, he's lost the ball 3 times. He's fumbled it 6 times. So that's not really great. But it's something that, with what the Lions did, drafting Kerryon Johnson this past year, who was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, there's high hopes for him. But if you read any draft fallout of Bob Quinn's kind of plan for Kerryon Johnson, is that he doesn't want him to be a bell cow back right off the bat. They want to ease him in. So if you have a stable of Theo Riddick, Blunt, Abdullah, and still Kerryon Johnson coming in as that 4th guy, still able to be a battering ram, then that's not bad. It's better to rely on a guy like Ameer Abdullah, in my mind, than, say, Zach Zenner.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Zenner's shown flashes of brilliance, and that's why he's been kind of a fan favorite, but I would rather trust those guys than a guy like Zach Zenner, who can come off, the practice squad, or even a guy like Dwayne Washington, for that matter.
Yeah, Zenner is great in very limited situations, but he doesn't have the physicality to be able to be a fantastic running back in the NFL.
Yeah, I don't think so either. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I don't think it's necessarily a size thing. It's just, I don't know. It's just, he doesn't seem athletic, and I don't want to have it that portrayed as, because, he's white or anything like that. It's just, one, like, when he does get the ball, when he has gotten the ball, I should say, recently, yeah, he's made some noise, but I don't think he's athletic enough to, once there's actually tape on him, to adjust on that. That's what I mean by it. Like, I mean, once you start stacking the box, which it's, a lot of people, when they found out this stat that the Lions were one of the best play-action passing teams in the league, even though they couldn't run the ball, once that box gets stacked, you still at times have to run it, and that's where those 3rd and short woes kind of go in. So, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't think when there's enough tape on the guy that he's athletic enough to make that adjustment. Instead, he's just kind of that battering ram. So that's why I think, for right now, I think it's a good thing to root for Ameer Abdullah. Obviously, he's still a Lion until they get rid of him at the end of the year, or if they trade him or whatnot. And I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's something that necessarily people should write off Ameer Abdullah for, even though, yes, there's times that he's been frustrating and whatnot. But
he did show improvement last year over the year before, I felt.
Yeah.
I felt a little more confident every time he got the ball than I did the previous year, where I was like, no, why?
There was flashes of brilliance, and there's always been flashes of brilliance with Ameer. So, it's something in that regard that, again, if he's doing well, that's only going to be good things, even if you're going to cast him off, because you could maybe, instead of getting a 5th round pick, get a 4th or 3rd round pick, and Bob Quinn has shown later on in the draft he can still find some pretty good gems. And that actually moves us into, I guess, what would kind of be our final topic for this show of Lions SRD, because hopefully we can do more throughout the week. But who do you think is going to be a breakout player candidate, Jamie? You can do one player or 2 players, because I have 2 in mind. They're both on the defensive side of the ball, but I think you might have one or two as well. Who do you think could be breakout candidates for the Lions this year?
Well, I think my first one would be Ragnow. I think that there's so much room to stand out on the offensive line of the Lions. As we've said, there's been no real standout on the O-line in ages. So I think that he kind of gets the easy task for that, because if he does well, if he keeps Stafford upright, if he doesn't let people through, he's going to make a name for himself very quickly. So I see him being the big breakout star in that regard.
That's not a bad pick.
I also think, and this one's going a little more out on the limb, I think that you're going to see a lot more out of Galladay this year.
Okay.
I like his height, I like his speed, and I think that we'll see a lot more cohesive and consistent brilliance out of him than we did last year, where we saw flashes of it and he was fantastic in certain situations. I think we'll see a lot more Calvin Johnson-ness out of Galladay this year.
Well, if you can get to part of Calvin Johnson, then that's great. But
I'd take a third.
Right? I'd take a third or a fourth of what Calvin Johnson could do. But and the thing I would like about Galladay is that if he does take that next step, if he does improve, it gives you a good 1-2 punch on your outside wide receivers with Marvin Jones and Galladay, and then you can move in the slot, obviously, with Golden Tate and make him a good threat and whatnot, and kind of go from there. And if you go, even the next step and bringing in a good tight end with Michael Roberts, maybe he develops as well. But I don't think necessarily it's that much of a jump. I want to say to expect something out of Galladay, because we saw reports last year all throughout camp. He was making insane catches. Obviously, in preseason, he was going crazy. In the beginning of the season, he was also going at a pretty good clip as well. So those are good breakout candidates. And mine on the defensive side of the ball, one of which, because I think he's actually going to be a good help with Glover Quinn, is Quandre Diggs, because when he was in as a replacement safety, he did a really good job. He hit hard. He made people think twice about going over the middle, and he caused turnovers and disruptions of the football. And I think if he's actually given more of an opportunity to play that role and solidify that role in the secondary, I think he's going to be an excellent addition next to Glover Quinn. And that he's someone for me that I have as a breakout candidate, because we saw more brilliance than flashes. We saw him do it on a consistent basis when he was filling in. So he's one for me. And another is, and this is where I'm going to probably lose a lot of people, but I think Jalen, as you may know him as Tease Tabor, is going to be a good guy that I think is going to have a nice breakout year. Now, for him to have a breakout year, I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, what does that entail? Because he hasn't really seen the field. Is it just him getting on the field? No, I think, in OTAs, he was picking off Matt Stafford. He was really good in run support. I think all he had to do was just get used to the speed of the game. And I think he's been able to do that. I know when he was in situations last year, he didn't look great, but that's expected. He's a rookie. It's very rare rookies look great when you're thrust into a situation anyways. But I think if he's making those adjustments, I know he's battling for the second cornerback spot across from Darius Slay, but even as maybe a nickel corner, a guy who's maybe a little bit slower but can still, take the cuts of like a tight end to, alleviate pressure from linebackers, or a guy that, can help in that run support. It can be that extra guy coming up in the box that if there is a run on the Lions, that it's not going to be for a gash of 5-6 yards. Maybe the opposing team is going to get at most 3 or 4, which would still be an improvement. But those are my two candidates, and it's funny that I know a lot of people are going to hate me for the Tease Tabor pick, but I just have this feeling that once he gets used to the speed of the game, that's where you're going to see the guy that we saw at Florida, because I know his speed isn't elite. I know I questioned his speed when he was drafted, and I don't think he's too slow for the game. I think he's too slow for his position. I think he'd be better as a safety, but I think he can still fill in admirably if the Lions are going to go with a multiple look on defense, which we still don't know if the Lions are going to stay as a 4-3 or transition to a 3-4 anyways. But I think he's a guy that is primed to make more positive plays than negative plays. And I think it's going to catch a lot of people off guard because you're going to see him in the preseason. And I know people are going to qualify it with, well, he's not doing it against starting talent. Well, no, but you're going to see the makings of a good player. And then hopefully by midway through the season, he'll be able to build off that, in week 6 and going forward. So those are my two candidates. And Jamie, you can
I've heard a lot of good things about Tease Tabor, honestly. I don't think you're as alone in that as you think you are.
I hope not.
People are seeing a lot of breakout potential in him, I think.
I hope not. I mean, because it's something that I know a lot of people that I've talked with, they're like, I don't know. It's like, well, I like to pride myself on the fact that I can at least analyze things on a good, pretty decent clip. And from what I've seen of Tease Tabor so far, I think he's a guy that can have kind of like a breakout year. So I hope that you're right, that, the reports are true and that he can, turn into be this kind of tour de force, as they say. But outside of that, I don't really have anything else I kind of wanted to bring up just yet. But like I said, we were definitely going to hopefully do at least 2 shows a week because everyone loves NFL content. We can easily provide that for you here at Sports Radio Detroit, as well as other content like Out of Bounds, Spinning the Wheels, Pistons SRD, the SRD Road Show, Mitten Sports Talk, and a bunch of others. If you want to find those shows, all you have to do is go to iTunes or Spotify or Stitchler. Basically anywhere you can find a podcast, we're going to be there. All you have to do is search Sports Radio Detroit, and then you can listen to all the shows on the feed. And when you do, just leave a review and maybe share it with a friend and leave a comment or a like. And we'd appreciate you for it. If you want to follow us on social, it's at Sports Radio DET on Twitter. Jamie, what is your Twitter handle so people can interact with you if they would like?
I am Jamie L. McTaggart.
And
just that simple.
I was going to say, you don't hide from anybody.
I don't, no. I probably should. I do have a crazy stalker out there somewhere, but...
Maybe you'll get some Lions fan crazy stalker. Hopefully not, but I'm in the same boat. I'm relatively simple, even though my last name is not easy to spell. I'm just at Ben Salagi. If you ever want to pick my brain, call me stupid or what have you, I will talk to you. And if you're on Facebook, all you have to do is search Sports Radio Detroit. You can find us, like the page, share the page with a friend. We have Facebook Live videos. We have all of our posts, obviously, there, and sportsradiodetroit.com actually has another big announcement that's going to be coming up relatively soon. Don't want to spoil it yet, but it's going to be really, really nice to see this new brand coming in and stepping through the ropes. That is your only clue. If you can figure it out from there, you are a Sherlock Holmes and you deserve a pipe and a hat and a coat. But like I said, I think that's pretty much all that we have this week, unless you want to throw a curveball at me, Jamie.
No curveballs this week. It's football.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get some guests and kind of break down the NFC North, because obviously the Packers and Vikings have altered their rosters in positive ways. I know that there's a contract dispute with a Bears draft pick, but yeah, we're definitely going to be getting into it definitely at a different clip. And I'm really excited that, like I said at the start of the show, I'm really excited Jamie's on. You guys are going to appreciate her views and her
most of the time.
No, I think they will. And it's, like I said, it's going to be a nice little change of pace, because it's not everywhere that you can get someone, as dialed into the Lions as Jamie is. So, Jamie, I want to say thank you for coming on. And, this is going to be, like I said, something that's going to be a part of your routine, and you're probably going to hate me in the next couple of months, but you never know. Maybe I can put a smile to your face sometime.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. I love to talk about the Lions, so how bad can it be?
Well, hopefully the record and stuff, but we'll try to put a positive spin on stuff. But that's all the time we have, and we will catch you next time right here on Lions SRD on sportsradiodetroit.com.
This has been an SRD production.